All right, go ahead and call the meeting to order, and let's go ahead and start with roll call.
Lisa Skumatz. Essie Snow.
Here.
Jonathan Koffler. Steve Sane. Becky Ho. Mike Henshin.
I am here.
Jim Zarsky.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any suggested amendments to the agenda?
Today's agenda?
Yeah.
Well, I kind of asked Karen about this, but I don't know if we officially want to put just the status update on the sprinkler all down here or not, Karen. Whatever you think.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add that into the new business and updates if there's an update that Karen you have maybe for that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Do we need to do an official vote if we don't have quorum, or?
No, and we can't anyway. So,
right.
So
I mean,
it can just be added as an update. That'll be fine.
Okay,
perfect. Anything else? All right. Is there any public comment that we have?
So, and because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see if there's any other attendees. Do you guys see anyone else?
Yeah, we have John, who was here earlier and then joined as a guest.
Okay, it does look like he raised his hand to speak. Yeah, so one of you guys will have to give him access to speak because I'm sharing my screen.
Came on.
How do we give him access to speak or permission to speak? Sorry.
So if you click on the chat down below, the chat screen should come up and you should be able to click on attendees.
Yeah, I see him. I just can't click on, if I click on the name or the hand, it doesn't do anything.
I'll just go ahead and stop sharing.
Sorry.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, yeah. There we
Cute
go.
small member we got there.
Yeah,
Very cute.
Hello.
All right, John, I've unmuted you. So if you.
Thank you. So once again, my name is John Shalau. I live up at the Ridge in the those townhouse complexes off McCaslin. And I was interested, I've been meaning to come to this meeting for a while. I just wanted to learn more about what you guys do. I see you have a couple of vacancies, and I'd be interested to talk to someone to see what's involved in being on the council at some point. But one of the main reasons I was interested, because there's 72 units here, and I'm wondering if it would be feasible to do a like a solar community, solar farm up here. Because a couple people, one guy has solar, another guy wants to get solar, but I'm thinking, you know, we have some open space surrounding us, and if we could just put in a whole bunch of solar panels and power the whole community, just curious if that's, you know, what would the town think of that and so on. I'm not sure if that's something that you guys would have any input on, or if that's out of your wheelhouse or whatever.
Yeah, well, John, thanks first of all for joining us. And Karen, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, Essie.
No, I was just going to talk a little bit about the committee's work. And really, so first and foremost, we're an advisory committee, so we don't have a whole lot of direct power per se to immediately go out and do stuff. We mostly create recommendations for the board around sustainability, so water, energy consumption, carbon emissions, air quality, waste management, those types of things. And we try to figure out different ways that we can work with the board to help promote those types of initiatives in Superior. So there's examples of waste management and promoting recycling and things like the compostable bags at the dog park. We're also working with Excel on the Partners Energy Program, which Lisa will talk about in a little bit. You know, we're having a presentation from a company called Duraroot around sustainable sort of land management and those types of practices. And so it's really sort of looking for ways that we can sort of help promote sustainable initiatives that way. So with regards to the solar farm, I think that's definitely something that sounds interesting. I don't know who's, you know, managing that land off the top of my head, or what the steps would be. You know, we are working with Excel, and so there's always potential opportunities to look for, you know, new solar projects or things like that. So definitely something we'd be happy to talk about, I suspect, but yeah, we'd have to figure out some more of the details. Is that helpful as sort of a general overview?
Yeah, it does. And I just kind of floating the idea at the moment. So it's not like we have to resolve anything or make any, you know, any decisions. But yeah, if somebody could just contact me, and then I could, you know, talk offline about a little bit more about what you do, and then see if there's somebody at Excel that I might be able to talk to, because it's more than just doing like a single panel on top of a single family home. It would be, you know, enough solar to power all 72 units. And I think, you know, initiatives like this could be like a model for other communities. And I'd look out over the reservoir here, and I see that the town of Superior has a bunch of solar already up there. And so it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to add just a bunch more panels right up next to what they already have.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, it's a great idea. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Sure.
I'd be happy to chat either later this weekend or maybe next week would be sort of ideal.
Sure.
Or if someone else has time to talk sooner than that. I'm off on paternity leave right now, so
sure.
Oh,
Cool.
That.
Yeah, there's no rush. I mean, but yeah, if somebody could, I don't know if you can contact me, I can put my email in the chat window, and that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to follow up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, looks like that's it for public comment, unless anyone else has any additional comments they want to add to what I shared. Thanks, John.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I guess with that, we can jump to the next item, which is, I believe, new business and updates. So do we want to talk first about the sprinkler audit? Karen, if you have any updates about that?
Sure. Like I'd mentioned before, but some of you guys weren't on. So I had spoken with Matt Rarick today at staff meeting, and he is the park superintendent who will be responsible for, and who is responsible for filling out the application for the sprinkler audit through Resource Central. So he has that application filled out and submitted, and we are in just a holding pattern waiting for Resource Central to get back to us as to when and how that sprinkler audit will happen. So as soon as I know anything, I'll be sure to give you guys another update.
Well, thanks.
Hey, Karen, and maybe you guys know the answer to this too, but does the sprinkler audit, does it include looking at the spray patterns of the sprinklers to see if they're hitting areas that aren't grass or that shouldn't be watered, like sidewalks, streets, even the ponds, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I do believe that's part of it. I mean, when I looked into this in the beginning, that was one thing. It has to do with the sprinklers and how they're working, how they're spraying, what it's covering. I can actually get a copy. Well, let me find out first if I can share it. I'll look to see if I can share, looking to see if I can share what exactly is done throughout the audit. And then if I can share that, which I'm sure I can, pretty sure, I will share that out with everyone so that you have an idea of exactly what will be audited.
This is for a town audit, a sprinkler audit? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. So the other item up was discussion of bringing updates on the green business program. And I don't know, now that Caitlin's out, what the status of that is, or or if there's another person who might be interested in being a point of contact with the group that takes care of that. I don't know, Karen, do you have any insights into that? If anyone else is?
I don't. I haven't heard anything from Matt Hannon or Zach. Was it Matt or Zach? I can't remember his first name. I haven't heard anything from any of them, and Caitlin didn't send any information. But if someone is interested, you know, I can get the contact info and send that to someone to reach out to them. Or we can wait until next month when we have more members as well. We don't exactly have quorum tonight, so.
I think maybe we'll just wait till next month then and bring it up with a bigger group. Okay, so I think next up is a discussion item with the Duraroot presentations. So I'll turn it over to James.
Cool. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for having us present tonight. It was about a year ago, I think, we presented to Karen and to Patrick Hammer at the time, and a little bit to Essie. So I'm here with Virginia Brown. She's also a Duraroot team member. We're both soil scientists. We work on large-scale reclamation projects across the country. And as we've seen recently, there's been this big push towards establishing pollinator habitats where those opportunities are possible. We've seen that on solar farms across the country, pipeline right-of-ways, even the increase of importance in municipalities and open spaces. So out of that, we kind of built this program. We've got a case study that we've actually seen this get started in a community. And yeah, I will start sharing my screen, and Virginia Brown and I will go through this with you guys. All right, can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So just a little background information about Duraroot. We're based out of Keensburg, Colorado, which is just a little past the wildlife animal sanctuary off Highway 52. We started out as doing reclamation in oil and gas, and then they started bringing on soil scientists, and we've seen our attention being pushed into more industries. So Virginia's out of Illinois, but Aaron, Christina, Kelly, and I are all out of Colorado. I live in Fort Collins. So with that being said, we will go through this presentation. So Superior, you guys, it sounds like you guys have a very established pollinator presence. I know last year you hosted a pollinator week. I believe it was on the agenda for this year too, but fell victim to many of the cancellations due to COVID. So I know that you know, Superior is pretty caught up to all the benefits and aesthetics pollinators can offer in the natural environment, but not only serving as from an aesthetics point of view, but also expanding their visibility and educating the community and the residents of Superior about those benefits. So we'll delve a little into the importance of pollinators, how to establish them, a case study, and then kind of what it takes to get those started up. So, and if you guys have questions at any time, please speak up. Virginia and I can answer them as needed. So here's a collection of pollinator signs you'll see throughout the country. These are from all over. We've got Maryland, we've got Virginia, Michigan. So, you know, this is just a way to highlight, hey, we've established pollinator habitats. Come check it out. Check out our Monarch Way station. Hey, here's an area where we've developed a pollinator garden. It's in the process, and kind of highlighting those efforts. So you can get really creative and cute with these signs, and I kind of like these, and but you can become more informative with these as well.
So, you know, obviously these gardens are good looking, they're pretty, but there's more benefit to that. You know, getting the most out of these ecosystems. One thing is, once they're established, they're very resilient. They're diverse as far as species are concerned, different types of flowers, but sustainability wise, and this is really an important issue, especially in Colorado, you know, water storage, decreased inputs. You know, a lot of these areas, these plants are from here, so they don't need all the watering, the fertilizing to stay nice. They store carbon dioxide in the extensive root systems, purifying the air. You know, these are all topics that people are becoming more aware of. And they also have a benefit of attracting the wildlife, so people can actually enjoy their time outside, enjoy nature, enjoy the birds and animals that come to these habitats. And we'll talk a little bit later, but Colorado in particular, these prairie areas are actually considered an endangered resource. So they can be small or they can be large, but they all provide the same benefits of conserving resources, filtering water, conserving water, purifying the air. You can go to the next one, James.
And then just to comment too, you know, there are opportunities available to get a certification as a bee city. So much like you can get the Tree City USA certification, the Xerces Society offers a Bee City USA certification as long as you follow certain protocols. So we'll touch on that also, but it sounds like Superior might be interested in attaining that certification. But yeah, it's pretty cool with the movement the country's taking with pollinator establishment.
So native landscapes, as I said before, they have that aesthetic richness, you know, all the different colors throughout the season. But really, the reduced stormwater, and this has been encouraged in a lot of places, even in small backyards, of having what's called a rain garden to take in water, reduce the burden of stormwater on a city, areas where you have a lot of pavement, reducing soil erosion, building topsoil, especially in areas where you've had construction or heavy grazing development. You know, the soil has been degraded over time anytime it's disturbed. So that's actually a resource that can be built over time with putting in prairies, putting in native plants, and those extensive root systems, which build carbon in the soil. They also create channels for groundwater recharge, which is one reason why these plants do so well here. They don't need the water because they're able to infiltrate the water into the soil, stay green throughout the year when it's really hot and dry. These plants are not killed by that. So the benefit of this is, yeah, it looks good, but really it might save a lot of money over time. You know, traditional landscaping involves quite a bit of maintenance, especially in areas where lawn probably isn't the most practical thing. A lot of watering, a lot of nutrients to keep it green. If you have a landscape that, you know, doesn't need watering, doesn't need all that mowing, factoring in the costs of that, you know, it could be, you know, we have here 80 to 90, but even a small percentage, if you're talking about a lot of land, could be a huge savings for a town, and even just individuals. If they have a lot of lawn and they start converting some of it, not only it might be more enjoyable as far as visual enjoyment, they might be using less inputs, which again, that's less fertilizers and herbicides, pesticides that could potentially be running off into, you know, the streams and waterways.
So like we've seen in Purple Park in Superior with the establishment of pollinator gardens and the expansion of those, you know, one of the biggest decreases in cost that comes out of this is, like Virginia was talking about, you've got less mowing events, less watering events. So, you know, Virginia and I have walked through those areas. I've been through Superior quite a bit, taking my girlfriend through there, and you can always see that there's landscaping crews out there, maintenance crews out there, and just decreasing those landscaping crews visits by 10% just from decreased watering and mowing would be pretty significant on the town's cost.
So, you know, where do you put this? Is it possible? It doesn't have to be a huge, large area at first. You know, we think of prairies, you think of large fields. It can be small, and I'll show examples of that later. There's a lot of opportunities, and sometimes it's good to have a lot of small areas as people, change is hard for people to accept. So, using signage, having small gardens that implement these ideas of conservation and sustainability, it kind of trains people, trains their eye, and educates them so they can accept these bigger changes as they come. So they can be implemented in larger open spaces, areas with trails, any easement areas, or just around traditional landscaped buildings where you might have just some normal landscape. Some of that can be converted to a more sustainable landscape. And if you go some of the next slides, I'll go through those. You can see some before and afters, that type of thing. So, where to begin? This is actually near where I live. And here you have what we're used to seeing, which is, parking lot, grass that's mowed quite short, one tree, some mulch, daylilies. It's not really, doesn't excite anyone. But these typical boring landscapes actually have quite a bit of maintenance. Someone is out here mowing all the time. When it's dry, it needs to be watered. There's no ecological benefit. You don't see a lot of animals or insects or birds. And generally these plants are non-native, which means they're from somewhere else in the world, and they might need a little bit more maintenance and help to survive either droughts, nutrients, fertilizers, pests. They need, pesticides to keep them alive. So it is a lot of maintenance, and to be honest, a lot of times it doesn't look that great. So going on, James, to the next. These are areas where we had that type of landscape before. It's just mulch and a couple little shrubs. Now these areas have been converted to what are on the sign as pollinator friendly habitats. Some of them are rain gardens where they might capture water from a gutter and slowly infiltrate them. And they're very attractive. And the ones on this slide are actually owned by their private businesses around. The community has really embraced this and implemented these little gardens where they can. And some of these are only two years old. So depending on how they're implemented, they can grow into very large, attractive gardens pretty fast. So we've been spreading these to local businesses. The schools have gotten involved, and each of them has a sign with a goal. Some of them are catered towards monarchs. They might have a lot of milkweeds and those kind of host plants. Some of them are just other native plants, any kind of species that you're targeting. But the signage and the community involvement is really important to getting people aware and spreading it. This is actually a new garden. It's only about a year old. It was planted by community members, and this is something that could be done during Superior's Pollinator Week, having people come in. This is at a township building, and there's a sign there. It's part of this community corridor, pollinator corridor project, where several areas in the town are putting in these gardens with the hope of increasing populations of endangered species, endangered pollinators. And this is a high traffic area. It's a municipal building. It's right by a walkway, and it kind of looks like a traditional garden. It's not a crazy jungle grassland. Sometimes people think it looks messy. You can actually have quite nice traditional looking gardens, but just incorporate native plants in there. And these plants don't need to be watered. They don't need to be fertilized. So just getting people familiar with what these flowers look like, and maybe they could have them on their own property.
And again, like Purple Park, areas like these are perfect for getting the community engaged and involved with, planting those plug species, which are part of the pollinator establishment process, just so there's a little more community investment, maybe a little more skin in the game, like having residents saying, yeah, you see those echinacea right there, you see those black-eyed Susans, I got to plant those, and now they're proliferating pretty nicely.
This is another kind of larger scale project. This is actually in Pennsylvania, and a walking path here. You can see it's a little manicured on each side. This area was actually all mowed at one point. like a lawn. I think at one point they were planning on maybe putting a soccer field in, and then that never happened, but it was just still being mowed. And then the community got the idea, the township decided, well, let's incorporate this into our open space, make it a meadow. And this has been a little bit of a passive project, kind of grew up naturally, and then clustered, you know, flowering areas concentrated for interest. It's about 5 acres, so it was a bigger project to tackle all at once. So they kind of clustered the trees and the flowers in certain areas with signs. And this area gets a lot of traffic. A lot of people see these species, see the signs, you know, what's happening here. This is groundwater recharge. And as far as maintenance needs, it's fairly low, you know, considering we're now mowing about just a little strip on either side of the path. And the rest is about once a year, it gets mowed down. And depending on where you are, the maintenance needs might be more or less than that. But it's just introducing people and still have, you know, the safety of their path and a little mowed area, but they can observe and absorb some of that information. So in addition to that, a lot of these areas, whether you start, you know, you have one garden or you apply for Bee City, you know, you can use that as a platform to get more recognition, get more grants, community involvement, money to expand these projects. And, you know, this is growing a lot, but at the same time, we're at the very beginning. So it's very easy to get recognition and get money. There's grants out there to improve projects. Where I am in Illinois, you know, we have a lot of this going on, and the towns are really proud of what they're doing. I'll have a case study showing the town I'm in, which just got a Bee City certification, and some of the things we're doing with that.
So not only are there national recognitions and certifications for pollinator establishment, Superior actually is in one of the best areas in Colorado along the 36 corridor. So the Butterfly Pavilion just down 36 near Westminster, they're very proud of their pollinator program. They've got great folks that run that too. They were just at the Colorado Open Space Alliance and were presenting on their program. Of course, Boulder has their pollinator project in conjunction with CU. Denver Botanical Gardens, they boast their pollinator gardens and species quite a bit. So, you know, being so close to Boulder, being on that 36 corridor, it's almost the perfect situation. Also with all that Boulder County open space, which, you know, there's a lot of people that are in jurisdictions that own that. There's a bunch of opportunities there. And as we've seen last year, Broomfield has their master plans, which includes a lot of bee-friendly parks, which would mean a lot of pollinator establishment areas.
So this is a little case study for you guys. Barrington Hills, that's where I live in Illinois, officially became a Bee City last year. And actually it was fairly exciting. We've had a lot of small projects, and this year, even with COVID coming in, we've been able to use social media to get going and still meet some of the goals that are required with Bee City. But we had a nice newspaper article about it, and you know, here on the left, this is a garden that was actually already implemented at the town because they've had interest in being sustainable and having habitat for a number of years. So the certification just kind of was the icing on the cake there. But this particular garden is one of those what's considered a monarch way station, and there's a nice sign there, and actually it has kind of a sample garden with all the species listed. So, you know, everyone walking by can see the garden, which looks, you know, it's manicured like a normal garden, but it's providing a lot more ecological benefit, and that education component I think is really important. So it identifies the plants that are there, and we do a plant sale every year where some of these plants are available. People can see what they look like and put them in their own yards. So it's been, you know, pretty fun to see it evolve. If you go to the next slide, James. This is a recent development this spring. We actually got a grant to buy some plants in addition to some of the money the town had to spend on environmental things. So we actually did a plant giveaway, and this had it on social media, a couple of Facebook posts. It was very popular. All the plants were gone within a day. And we bundled them so, people could start small, just, a little plot, a little corner of their pre-existing garden or make a new garden, and start, introducing them to these ideas. Another thing that we've been doing, started this year, is we're doing a photo documentation of a prairie installation. There was some open space, a few acres behind the town hall, and we're going through all the stages of what it takes to create this mini prairie, basically a postage stamp prairie. So this photo on the right, where there's a little bit of dirt, that area, the lawn area has been removed, and we've gone through and planted the seed, and we'll be documenting, the ups and downs of that, so everyone is aware. Maybe that's something they can take on at home, or maybe it's too much and they just want to help out at some of the community events. So it's had a lot of community involvement, and this all goes in with the Bee City, some of the requirements for that certification. Our town also has some larger areas we've taken on, and I think it's really important, just like the signs on any of the butterfly gardens, if there's an area of, that doesn't have any plants and it's dirt for a period of time while you're seeding, it's really important to have signs that say, hey, this is a restoration, habitat is being restored and created here, so people can see that and, realize, oh, okay, that's why it looks funny. That education component is really important. And those previous slides with the bare dirt are right near, and they're actually in the same field where we have some pre-existing prairie. So we converted a new area that hadn't been managed before, but it's right next to this established prairie, which has a nice walking path and a biking path on it. And this is actually only 3 years old, so it established really well. Every time of the year, spring, midsummer, there's different colors, different things in bloom. It's really beautiful, and again, it's an opportunity to recreate these habitats and conserve resources, and people are seeing what the finished product look like, and they're more tolerant of transition areas or areas you're working on, especially when they know what it's going to look like at the end of the day.
Hey, what's the difference between a natural area and a prairie area?
It just depends on it. They're kind of introduced. Natural, like an area is just an area that's not mowed, and some areas are just a hay field. These prairie areas have been overseeded with a lot more native species. They've been improved. This area before, I think, was just grazed, and it was just kind of open, scrubby, nothing special. There weren't any buildings or playgrounds on it. It was just kind of open. Now it's been improved with 3 years of seeding and management, and at this point, I think there's probably 100 different species growing in there, some grasses and some flowering.
So one unique thing about this too is Colorado used to be home to remnant tallgrass prairie ecosystems. Those have now been established as more rare than old growth forests. Of course, Colorado is home to some shortgrass prairie. Take the Pawnee National Grasslands for example, but there's actually evidence of remnant tallgrass prairie in Boulder County. So, when you think of tallgrass prairie, it's usually little blue stem, big blue stem, switchgrass, Indian grass, which can develop and establish in the same areas as you would try to establish, shortgrass prairie like blue grama and any of the types of those sand drop seeds and other grommas. So, there's a unique opportunity there when you're establishing your desired ecosystem. So we know that Town of Superior has an intricate trail system that goes through some of that open space in Boulder County. And, if that area has been grazed too long and there's been, damage to that ecosystem that needs repair, and the Town of Superior is interested in repairing that ecosystem, there's an opportunity there to, hey, we've recognized this remnant tallgrass prairie. We're going to try to bring that back. And if not, hey, shortgrass prairie and the benefits that come from that. there are some really good opportunities in the town of Superior to start doing that. Just, these are stats and numbers off your guys' open space website, but we know that there's a bunch of open space, that intricate system of trails, which are probably the easiest areas to tackle. And then like those smaller gardens like throughout Purple Park and some of the dog parks throughout the town, which would be ideal areas to start establishing these types of ecosystems. So the integrated pest management program, we start to think about the #1 pest in Colorado, the prairie dogs. Is there an opportunity to establish more native vegetation that kind of crowds those populations out and is more welcome to other forms of wildlife, bringing those species that you typically see on the foothills of the Rockies closer into the town of Superior, and they can be managed that way. So there's plenty of opportunities throughout Superior, just like we see with Boulder County, City of Boulder, and that right corridor right there.
Yeah, I'll jump in here too. A lot of areas, like this one in the photo here, it looks pretty good. It's not a jungle of invasive plants. And a lot of times you can improve habitat without, starting from scratch and having a clean slate. Where I am, we have in the winter, that's the time to seed where I am. We have community events where people go out and spread native seeds of flowers and grasses every year to build on the species diversity. And they're the same people that enjoy walking in that park or running. And as spring comes, they can see those other species come up, where before it was just grass, maybe 1 or 2 species, not that interesting, open, but not that interesting. And over time, they're seeing kind of the fruits of their labor come up and different blooms throughout the year. So it kind of ties people to the land a little bit, which I think is important, especially projects that are larger. You have large areas, more hands is definitely easier. A lot of times it's incorporated with removing invasive species. Where I am, there's not a huge fire risk, so have a bonfire and just a community thing. It's been very successful.
So we've been talking here quite a bit about the benefits of pollinator establishment, prairie establishment, but there is a science behind it, just like there's a science behind establishing turf grass or any other type of ecosystem. So kind of what Duraroot's role in this and how we assist municipalities and operators with this is we pretty much have a program that helps get this started quickly and established as quickly and efficiently as possible. But first, every open space, every area requires its own restoration plan. There are just too many components to these areas that can affect certain methods and processes. Site selection, plan selection, how you prepare that site, seeding windows is critical. And then how are you managing weeds on that location? Do you have a mowing program, a spraying program? Just for example, Virginia and I this week put together a restoration plan on the Erie Parkway Bridge corridor. There were opportunities to establish some native meadow areas. They're just off the greenway. So, these areas that are very visible to the public. They're not on top of the greenway, but they can be seen from both the road and the sidewalks. We put together a seed mix to establish some of those pollinator species, wildflowers, but also putting a little native grasses in there as well. So there is a science, bottom line is there is a science to getting this started, and it starts from the soil all the way up to vegetation management.
One of the reasons that's important is because the planning, the implementation, and all the way through the monitoring is that when there's failures like this picture on the left, that's when one of these elements was not followed through. And it could be a variety of reasons, but when you have a failure, the public sees that and they don't like it. So it's really important to do these projects well, because their mind is already set on turf grass with a tree and a little circle of mulch around it. That's kind of what is ingrained in most people's minds, and it's slowly changing that. and doing it correctly so we get more of that picture on the right, which is, yeah, it doesn't look like a traditional meadow or a traditional garden, but it looks great. It's a flowering meadow, and there's all this wildlife there. So it's really critical to do it right. Not only so it looks good, but you're meeting all the goals you're looking for as far as conservation, habitat. Because on the left here, you may have put down all the species you wanted, but nothing grew because something was missing. Maybe the soil wasn't prepared correctly, or the weeds weren't taken care of, and now you have bare soil which could erode. So all these steps are critical, and a lot of times implementing pollinator and conservation gardens seems hard because a lot of times they fail. They're not implemented correctly, but it can be done. We've had a lot of success with it. There are a lot of successful projects out there, especially if you go on the Xerces website and look at that bee city, a lot of towns have these great projects, and it really brings the community together. They can be done very well and meet all your goals.
All right, we finally got to the last slide, and just to kind of tout, the experience and personnel Duraroot can bring to this program, especially for the town of Superior. We know that you guys have pretty much an in-house landscape architect in Matrix. We used to work a bit with Ian Anderson. I think he's moved on, but as Matrix has helped on that Cold Creek corridor with the soccer fields and stuff like that. And then of course our sister company is H2 Enterprises, and they're pretty much the reclamation construction group behind what we do. So they're the ones with the John Deere equipment, the tractors, the seeding equipment, the seedbed prep equipment. So Duraroot, from creating that restoration plan, identifying the appropriate seed mixes, identifying any soil amendments or fertilizers that are needed, basing that off the design from the landscape architect, and then having reclamation contractor put that all to work. It's a pretty good trifecta right there when you're trying to put it in the motion. So we've done a little bit of work for Town of Superior, Tract H, and we've helped do some flower beds throughout the town as well. But yeah, it's a program that has seen a lot more focus put on it lately, and we're starting to see it grow and grow. But just wanted to kind of highlight these efforts and show you guys the benefits of sustainable landscaping, sustainable ecosystems that you can absolutely start to establish in the town of Superior, and also promoting that within the community and having that hands-on approach that we think is pretty critical to this whole program. So that pretty much wraps it up. If you have any questions, Virginia, I would love to field those and answer anything you guys might have.
I have a question. I assume part of your management plan includes recommended watering schedule and rates, depending on what you plant, based off the soil type and the climate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we typically lean on more native vegetation. If it's not perennial rye, tall fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, which requires frequent watering, we're not really relying on watering too much besides just what we'd get in the throughout the year. That's why we kind of would really recommend seeding only during particular seeding windows. For most grasses, we would a cool season seeding window would be ideal. That way you're not having to water, you're relying on early spring, late fall precipitation to help you along with that, and then warm season to kind of get those forbs growing. So we typically don't like to water much more than what's already being watered, just because these native species don't usually require it. And if you baby them at the beginning and you're watering them, once some stress starts to be put on them, they start to die out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing, say you're at a high traffic area, you want to do a really nice one, and you're going to put in live plants, which could be recommended, especially in a more intense landscape design where you're going to have a more formal bed. It might be better to put actual potted plants in there rather than start from seed, just so the public perception is a little better. That scenario, you might need to water them a little bit just the first year until they can start growing roots. And then after that, you shouldn't need anything. I was just actually checking on a garden today that was planted last year, and it hasn't been watered at all. And it's been hot where I am for weeks with not much rain, and it looked great. And everything around it was kind of getting really crispy. So once they're established, it doesn't need much. Again, if you're starting from seed and you get in the right window, it really doesn't need much maintenance at all.
So would part of your services include identifying areas that would be good candidates for this, or would we identify those areas and then you guys?
Well, we could definitely help out with that, because some areas are more appropriate than others, especially if you're just getting your feet wet in this.
Again, some of those that trail system on the west side of town, you know, that area seems to be damaged from previous grazing and some construction. So that would almost be low-hanging fruit from like, hey, how do we get this more aesthetically enriched? How do we, is this a good candidate for establishing more prairie or tall grass populations? So yeah, we could identify those types of areas.
So then, oh, sorry, I'm still.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, do you guys put together then like a feasibility study, or like look at the whole town together, or do you really have to focus in on one area? Like, how does that work?
I think we go as big or small as you want. If you kind of want a whole thing, identify. I think the high traffic areas are kind of nice to target because people get to see it.
Yeah.
But you know, it really boils down to how much Superior wants to do, and we can be involved in that for sure.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, I know the town board had said that they were interested in possibly doing something in the medians, so that those medians didn't have to, you know, for the safety of our landscape workers. Would that be a place that we could start?
Yeah, for sure. I know the Department of Transportation already is involved heavily in a lot of states in doing that for that reason. So that's a great place to start. And it's visual, you know, people see it all the time.
Any other questions?
How big an area do you, I mean, you've looked around Superior, there are big areas and small areas. What's kind of the smallest area that's appropriate and the biggest area that's appropriate, if you can kind of describe it without using the words east or west? Sorry. I don't know my directions around town, so sorry. I know the mountains are to the west, the mountains are to the west. It doesn't help me. So.
Yeah, no, you know, I think Virginia kind of hit it on the head a little earlier in one of these slides. It's how much do you want to scale up, and you know, hitting some of those smaller areas like the medians and the roads, or you know, little pollinator gardens at Purple Park, or some of those parks around town, the dog park, or even the Frisbee golf course. I think are excellent candidates to kind of start small scale. I had a picture in there. Those were all pictures from Superior, but you see a lot of mountain brome and smooth brome throughout. You know what, I'm just going to show you, because you guys have probably seen this species quite a bit. But you know, would you rather, when you're out hiking or walking, would you rather, so it's,
I'd rather see any of the pictures you showed than the poor struggling trees in the medians. Yes. On McCaslin.
I got you. These are all from Purple Park, and then what you're going to see here is let's see, come on, mountain brome. So you know, trying to move away from those species and more towards these pollinator species. So that's a small scale. I think, you know, those would be excellent candidates, but larger scale, let's see, what would that area be called? It's you know, west of McCaslin, where you guys just put in that sportsplex. So there was that mountain brome, but you see that everywhere, and that's ubiquitous kind of in Colorado. But you know, moving away from that, which is, that grows anywhere. It's ubiquitous. It doesn't serve any ecological or sustainable benefits.
Thanks.
So, but yeah, I hope that answers your question, but it's
Yeah, thanks.
small scale to larger scale.
Karen, do you happen to know, I know there are a lot of sort of open areas around Rock Creek. Do you know if that's managed by the town or by the Rock Creek HOA?
That's one thing I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I thought the
Like,
HOA
it's
had
easy.
zero, I don't think the HOA has any property, so I think that's easy.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that seems like that could be a really easy opportunity, especially since it's near houses, and any impact on aesthetics would be appreciated, I expect. So what are some of the best next steps if we decide to go forward either with a kind of smaller project or a larger one? Obviously we have to consult with the board first, but from your perspective for Duraroot, what's sort of the ideal next steps from your standpoint?
And can I ask a related question?
Sure.
Is there an order of magnitude, like cost per acre or something like that, to put something in?
Absolutely. I think any opportunity to where, say, preparing a site and establishing the desired species takes a construction component. You need tractors, you need drill seeders out there. That the fees involved with that are tied up in mobilizing that equipment, which is in Keensburg, but which has just come to Superior. So you would want to try to take advantage of taking as many acres as possible just to cut down on that overall cost. But Essie, to get to your question, if you guys are interested in building this sustainable landscaping program and you're like, hey, can you identify some areas for us? That's something, Virginia and I could do. I just live up the road. We've got soil scientists in Westminster and Golden, and just taking an inventory of those areas. Then we would try to implement a soil sampling program, which just like, hey, by looking at these soils and knowing what's needed, we can then start determining a seed mix and then recommending soil amendments and fertilizers. And that's pretty much the base level.
Okay. And do you have a sort of rough cost for that initial step of sort of, looking around and seeing what might be good to prioritize and that type of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be much. That would just to kind of be just like an estimate, working with you guys on, are you interested in this program and these services? And, we would just do that for free. So
okay.
Just give me a shout, give Virginia a shout, and we'd be more than happy to meet you guys on location or just being pointed out which spots you'd like.
Karen, from your standpoint, is there anything stopping us from just going ahead with at least an estimate, and then we can present it to the board as a recommendation to consider, especially since we're going to be talking about budget recommendations soon?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all. I think the more information and statistics you can, get to the town board, and if this is a free service, then, to put all that together, then I would say that would definitely be a next step.
Okay,
cool.
So I am an economist, so I can't help but ask the question again or a different way.
Sure.
Like 5 acres, what would that be, or something like that?
And I wish I could give the economist an economical answer. And it just depends. It's, what type of landscape do you have? Are we going to have to go out there with a rock chisel?
What's a nearby town you've done this in?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What is a nearby town you've done this in?
Erie.
Okay, so let's say Erie. How many acres did you do in Erie?
So we've put the restoration plan together for Erie. It was about a 20-acre site. That just putting together that restoration plan with seed mixes and soil amendments, that was $4,500. The reclamation construction side, is that what kind of Yeah, that
I care
I'd
about
have
the
to get.
implementation, not the plan. I want to know about the implementation part of it.
Sure, sure. And I would have to get with H2 on that. I may be able to get that information to you tomorrow, but that could be, it depends on the equipment. You know, I don't know what type of equipment they would bring out. So
But
Is
it wouldn't be
there an
hard for us
opportunity
to
to work
get
with?
that information.
Sorry.
We can definitely get it to you.
yeah.
We will just definitely say the wrong number if we say one now.
I'm just looking for an order of magnitude. Is it, so that's all. Okay.
All right. I you know, if I
Yeah.
could just shoot from the hip, and I'm speaking for H2 here, and they'd slap me for it, but you know, just using the standard equipment, I would say around $10,000 an acre to buy the seed, incorporate the amendments and fertilizers, prep the seed bed, and do the monitoring and maintenance. So that's just shooting from the hip. I'm don't hold me to it, but I think that's a pretty fair number.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm sorry for the. It's just there's
I
a
know
lot
it's
of.
hard. I know that's why I asked for a range or anything.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
asking you to pin you down. I was just trying to get. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. You bet.
What do you mean by
They're also-
maintenance?
What?
What do you mean by maintenance?
Monica,
Just
Oh, like
the.
weeds and mowing. I mean, even if you just put the seed down, that's not enough. It needs to, you kind of need to monitor and make sure that the species you want are coming up, give them the right chance. Unfortunately, we live in a world that has a lot of invasive weeds in it. So making sure that those fast growing weeds don't take over and you end up with a very unattractive site that has failed. So a lot of times herbicide maybe initially, or mowing, depending on your wear, sometimes burning, something like that. And that's usually just the first, I will say 2 years. Sometimes you can get lucky and have 1 or need 3, just depending on what the previous land use is. So it's going to be some kind of implementation to make sure that everything is growing and going in the direction you want it to.
And Jim,
It's
that
some-
might be something like mowing the site 3 times a year, spraying it twice a year. So it's just something like that, keeping it minimum.
and that's presumably considerably less maintenance than we currently have to spend with the bluegrass. I'm wondering how much we spend per acre for maintenance on our current landscaping. Karen, Ms. Nortland. I know you wouldn't know now, but
I can find that
maybe
out.
it's something we can find out just to get some idea of where we're coming from.
Yeah, I think to build the business case for the board, we need to look at the cost per acre of the current maintenance contract and then compare that to
That's what I'm thinking.
exactly. Yep.
I think also, because we have the budget recommendations coming up, if there's sort of a ballpark number to ask for something, obviously, you know, we haven't done the studies to know exactly what we would want to do yet. So I understand it's really hard, but there's like a ballpark amount that would be good to ask for, so we can hopefully do something next year if it gets approved.
Yeah, and if
I
we
think
come
that'd
out,
be helpful.
if we come out and look, go over the site with you guys and really see what areas would be suitable, and we can come up with a price for those, and then you can kind of choose which one, you know, okay, if you guys have 10,000 or 100,000, you know, how many of these can we do? Can we do, you know, 1 big one or 5 small ones, something like that? We can help you with that.
And I would
Okay,
prefer,
yeah, that'd be fantastic.
that sounds good. Hopefully through implementation, not just through study. Because I hate to come to the board twice if we can avoid it.
Understand.
Understood.
And we do have a budget too for ACES, and so there may be an opportunity for ACES to help fund the survey and then go to the board to actually ask for implementation potentially. I don't remember off the top of my head how much money we have left in our budget this year, but you know, that may be another option too. So, all right, well, thank you guys so much. Are there any other questions?
Well, thank you.
We really
Yeah, thanks
appreciate it,
so much
guys.
for the
Thanks, Karen, for the invite.
Thanks so much, guys.
Sorry to push you. I didn't mean it in a mean way. Just trying to get some ideas.
Lisa, I can actually get you a number by the end of next Friday for more exact numbers for you to work with, if that works for you.
Thank you. That would be lovely.
I will do it.
Send it to the, yeah.
And James, do you want to maybe reach out to Karen and I about setting up the estimate?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll call you tomorrow, if that works.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. I know we blew past our 20 minutes, but I think that was
Yeah,
a good presentation, and that was really valuable. So we'll put that on the agenda for next month to talk about in more detail, and hopefully if they have an estimate by then, that'd be great. So it looks like the next agenda item is an update on the Partners in Energy program for Lisa.
I think the latest is we were hoping to do one more oops tag check on Monday in the 3 neighborhoods so we could see if people learned anything, see fewer mistakes in the cleanliness. We're having a hard time getting staff people to do it with us. So I don't know if any of you are interested. I'll reach out again, but if you are, that'd be great. If not, we may have to put it off to another Monday, the next Monday, when we can maybe get some more people's kids, that sort of thing. Teenagers, or 20-year-olds, that sort of thing. Kids waiting to go back to college. There's a poignant little pause. Okay. I don't hear any big clamoring of volunteers for Monday. All it is open up the recycling bin. Oh, they've got their recyclables in a plastic bag. That's a big no-no, that sort of thing. So anyway. Okay, if you change your mind in the interim, feel free to send me an email. The other thing that we just printed and are sending out the last appeal for surveys. We decided to stop using the Excel kits as a, if you fill it out, then you get a kit. And we decided to guilt people into it. And so 1 out of 3 houses in the neighborhoods, we went out and brought them a kit, left it on their doorstep with a thing that says, look, congratulations, you got picked. You should fill out this survey and look at this great solar phone charger you get in here. And it got a lot higher response rate, and we got them out of my garage finally. So they've been there for months and months. It became a little bit of a problem with my husband. So yes, so they're gone. The guilt got a little higher response rate, and we didn't get enough, so we're sending out postcards either later this week. I guess it's already Thursday, so it must be early next week that we're going to get them out. So, and that is the last survey, the last effort, the last undertaking with the last oops tags check. So yay, and then they're going to want more of a start work on the plan, the energy focused plan with Excel. So that's it. We'll write up the results we're getting. I think we saw an increase in people having second garbage cans throughout this COVID thing. So we kind of have some data before COVID and data during COVID about how much people were setting out in terms of number of containers. We didn't weigh them or that sort of thing because that would have been way too expensive. But anyway, we'll let you know if there was a growth because of people cleaning up. I will say there was a willingness on the part of the garbage haulers to pick up extra for a 20. But anyway, since we were doing some house cleaning like everybody else. So anyway, okay, thanks.
Well, thanks, Lisa. I know I'm on one of the streets with the surveys for recycling, so anecdotally, I can say that I've heard some positive feedback from neighbors, so it's been cool to see.
Did they like the solar charger? Who cares about the LEDs? Everybody just wanted the solar charger, right?
Well, and I don't think, I haven't talked to anyone who's gotten the kit yet, but just the little report cards on the recycle bins that say, great
good.
job or not so much. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Good.
So thanks again.
And I hate to do this, but I was supposed to leave about 10 minutes ago, so I have to go. So I'm sorry to leave this meeting early, but okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
Appointment. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so next up is recommendations for the 2021 budget. And since there's so few people here, I'd suggest that maybe for Mike and James, we just, take a look at the existing budget recommendation for this year and think about some recommendations for next year. And potentially if we have, information from Duraroot that could be applicable, we can talk more about that next meeting. Does that sound good with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that's just on my mind, I mean, that when we talk about budget, we're usually talking about requesting funding for something specific that we want, right? Just in the context of one of our other recommendations, if it was to, like, we recommended that the town include in the landscaping contract a request for transition to electric landscaping equipment. And that like process is going to take until December or something, well past when the budget process is set. But I'm just trying to play this through in my head and say, if we get to December, you get some responses and it's like a material increase from the current landscaping contract cost. And if we ended up wanting to say that that's justified to spend the extra money, like is our expectation that the town is gonna put in a line item for the landscaping contract now based on historical cost, and that if that's too limited, then that might limit our ability to advocate for something that's more expensive in the future, just because the budget doesn't accommodate it. And I'm not familiar enough with the mechanics of the budget and the substance of it, but it occurs to me that a recommendation could be to, set aside some contingency fund for sustainability related, contracting expenses. But I don't know if anyone has any more thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where do you draw the line between what should come out of our budget versus what would the town just pay for? Is that kind of what you're saying in a nutshell?
Well, no, I mean, there's sort of like a standard practice to allocate a modest amount of money to each committee as discretionary budget. But I think someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the purpose of making a budget recommendation now is to determine how to use that smaller discretionary budget, but it would be to determine if we're going to make any other requests above and beyond that. And so that would just be out of the town's general budget. We'd have to like advocate for something in particular if we think the town should be budgeting for it.
Right, and at this point, yeah, you can make those recommendations. The department heads have been working diligently on the budget, and that's why Martin came to the meeting. I believe that was in May. Or was that the June? That was the May meeting, and because they're working on that. So committees, like you said, Mike, are in the process of making their recommendations for their discretionary funds. If it's going to be up and above that, that would actually be a good thing to bring up and discuss with the town board when you meet with them on Monday to get that.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe that's the path forward. So my presumption would be then that the existing, Matt, presumably, I believe it's Matt, would have incorporated his own estimates of landscaping into his own budget request. And then because this committee is making a recommendation that down the road may potentially lead to an increase in that cost, we'd want to identify that. So maybe that's the resolution. Karen, I appreciate the suggestion, is that it's rather than us making some additional estimate separately, just within the context of the recommendation we've already made, I can raise this issue at the board meeting on Monday. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. And speaking of that, I think the next item is recommendations for the town sustainability goals.
Well, and as far as the recommendation for the 2021 budget, did you guys want it to be just what it was in the past, or because we'll need to capture that in the notes because I submit those to the town clerk and then those go to the town board, or if it's just that you want the typical $5,000, then we just move forward with that request.
What's
I
the
just want to
drop
make
dead
sure
date
that
for
we're not
the
missing.
recommendation?
I'm sorry, go
Can you
ahead.
remind us what the drop dead is? The drop dead date is for getting the request for budgets in?
It's July, so it would have to be during this
okay.
meeting that would need to happen.
Okay.
And I see that we don't have quorum. We've discussed things in the past, and I sent out some information to everyone what was requested in the past and how the budget worked and everything. So I mean, we can't vote on it, but we could put something together as long as it stays within the 5,000. Because if it was above, then we'd have to have a quorum and vote.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't think we've spent the current year, fiscal year budget we have, but, and it's sort of like nice to have a discretionary fund available if we choose, which gives us the option to do things in the future. And even if it's whether we want to follow through with, environmental landscape consultant to do a study for us or something, that's the type of thing that our budget could fund. So it feels valuable to keep it. If we don't have a well-developed plan for something specific, then I wouldn't suggest advocating for anything special above and beyond that. But I don't know, how is the 5,000 just is our estimation that just expressing interest in maintaining that as a discretionary fund for sustainability consulting, et cetera, is sufficient for our purposes today, or
Yes,
Okay.
that would work if James or Jim makes sure you get that captured in the notes.
What would you like me to write?
Well, and my suggestion is that as a committee, we'd like to allocate $5,000, same as we did the year before or last year, as a discretionary budget to pursue sustainability related contracting or other initiatives. I think we'd want to be general. Obviously our spending would support the mission of our committee in advancing sustainability of the town, but absent a very specific proposal, I think we should just express the general purpose we're seeking here. Yeah.
And Karen, I know in the past we've had a relatively detailed budget request, and I didn't put that together. I thought we had more time, so my apologies for that. So can we keep the budget request basically the same as last year with the $5,000 fund? And I can't remember if there were additional things that came up that we want to ask for, but just sort of keep it largely unchanged unless there's something that makes sense that we've talked about.
Yeah, and what I was thinking what I would do is I emailed that out to all of you guys, so I'll just take that verbiage and add it to what Mike just suggested. And then
okay.
I'll edit the notes once Jim sends them to me. So I'll just make sure that all of that's there. And then what I might do is send it out to everyone really quickly before I submit it. And I'll just need responses back from everyone as soon as possible when you receive that so that I can get that submitted.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, anything else on that note?
No.
All right, so next item is town sustainability goals, and then there's also an additional item for the reports to the town board. I probably gotta go right around 7. I can maybe go slightly after that. So I don't know how we want to handle those two items.
Yeah. I'll just discuss, and be quick. The sustainability goals, I think, my desire here is to get to the point next month or beyond where we have a set of goals we're excited about and we can formally vote on and recommend them to the town board. So we're not going to do that today, but I did share, added some information to what we had last month, share them around by email. I have 6 goals on there. Air quality is focused just on that one. I think is super straightforward. Just like bring the ozone levels within the actual safe guideline and take action as a town to meet that. Climate, I'm proposing now we just match the state's goals and take action as a town to match the state policy that was passed last year, which has specific percentages in years. The waste, I'm going with what Lisa provided recommendation on by email last month, which is the percent recoverables remaining down to 15% or lower. I haven't put a date on there. I'm not sure we need to, but I just set that as a target. And then we ended up with 3 different energy related goals. We could consolidate if we want, but the one that's most near at hand, I think, because it was brought up even outside of this committee at a town board retreat a couple months ago, is the option to power the town facilities 100% with renewables. I looked at the study that Ken had sent out a couple months ago, and by my calculation, it's about 40% now between what's on site and the renewable content of Excel. So there's likely a straightforward option just to pay Excel through one of their programs to bring that up to 100. And then aspirational goals for 2030 for community-wide 100% renewable electricity and for reductions in natural gas use. I think there's a discussion about how aggressive the target we want to set on gas use. The City of Denver Climate Action Task Force just came out with something that gets them to like 60% by 2030, super quick. By my read of the statewide analysis that's still in progress, they're going to recommend something like 25%. So I think that's the range we're talking about, and we'll just settle on something there. So I'm pretty comfortable with those 6 goals. We can just sort of pick a number on the arbitrary stuff and discuss next time, but happy to hear any feedback you guys have.
Yeah, I read your email, Mike, before the meeting, and nothing was a flag to me. I mean, they all looked good, and hearing your commentary now to go with it, I'm even now more comfortable with it. So I don't have any feedback to give.
Yeah, I'd agree with Jim too. I read through the goals and I think they're great. So I didn't have any additional feedback or suggestions for improvements. So I think those are excellent as is.
All right, well, I think we're teed up well enough to just have the conversation next time and hopefully get to a vote, make any final decisions we need to. And then on the town board on Monday, I'm planning to present, the idea was to share in person, or at least live virtually, our the recommendations from last month, because we made a few, but with a particular emphasis on the town contracts. The one recommendation around at least what we put in the RFP, which is sort of a no regrets step, to ask for bids showing options for transition to electric landscaping equipment, and then on the waste contracts, options for electric garbage trucks. And so I just like to describe these to the board members and tell them why we think it's a good idea. We'll raise this issue about the planning around the budget and the possibility that we would be asking them to spend more in the future, and just making sure that that is on their radar. But happy to hear any other inputs.
I think the only other thing, Mike, that we were going to talk about, and I was reminded by this when I was looking at last month's agenda, is asking the contract to be scalable, that if we do eliminate turf, and readjust the fee for the contract, especially if we're looking at Duraroot changing out turf and eliminating turf. We don't want to be locked into a fixed price 5-year contract and we don't save anything.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, okay, I'm adding that to my notes. Thank you.
I think
Mike,
those things all sound great.
I was just going to let you know, Mike, that tomorrow Emily Clapper will be sending you a Zoom invite. It will actually come from, I believe it says no reply at zoom.us, but it might have Emily's name on it as well. It won't come from the TOS pros, but that will be what you use to log into the meeting. And I don't know if you saw the agenda for what time you're listed. You have that? Okay.
Yeah, I saw that it's in the first, well, it's in the first hour at least.
Yeah. Yep. So just go ahead and log in right at 6, and then make sure when you log in that your video and your microphone are both off. And then once they get to you, they'll ask you to turn your video and your microphone on. Okay.
So Mike, so just in summary, you're going to mainly talk about the landscape contract updates for the RFP. And the two main updates are requesting them use electric equipment and ask if the contract can be scalable if turf grass is eliminated. Are that the two main things, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, those are the main ones. I'll also mention in the same vein the waste contract that the town manages, and that we've asked Martin to include a request for electric garbage trucks in that too. And happy to, I just want to present the idea overall that the town can take steps through its contracting decisions and just answer any questions about these particular technologies.
I know we've talked about this last couple of meetings, but do you have a good list of the pros and maybe cons? I don't know if there's any cons. Probably price is the biggest con, but the pros for these recommendations?
Yeah, I've got my stuff queued up. For me, I don't know about you guys. I have the app set on my weather app on my phone that it gives me the notification if there's an air quality alert. And I've just been getting a ton of them lately. So I'm gonna lead with that. And lawn equipment has a disproportionate contribution to nitrogen dioxide pollution, which is a precursor to ozone. And per gallon of gasoline, it can be up to 7 times worse than driving a car around. So I've got my stats and my points I want to make and talk about healthy air and climate change and things like that.
Noise pollution, don't forget that.
Noise pollution, exactly.
Not having to wake up to a lawnmower in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks again for doing that presentation. I look forward to hearing what the response is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be there to support you, Mike. We're actually going on vacation next week, so won't be in this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well,
Cool. Well, I think that's everything on the agenda. So thanks everyone for attending, and look forward to seeing everyone again next month.
Yep. And then Jim, when you send me the notes, do you want to do the recap as well for the weekly happenings?
Yeah, do I just send it to the ACES email?
You can do that, or you can send it directly to me.
Okay.
The notes and the recap.
Yeah, I'll do both. I'm going to take care of it right now. Otherwise, I'll get sidetracked and forget about it.
Yep. Just go ahead and send it to my email, and then I'll have it, and we'll be good to go.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Perfect.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.